It's Saturday morning, and who do I find on the other side of the Zoom camera? My good friend Dewey Freeman. Dewey, how are you,
Good
buddy?
morning, sir. I am
I'm
well. I've had a great week.
I'm Mark Sylvester. We are the Elder Council, and we talked about it last week. How could we be a council of two? And you took us to school. Um, did you have a good week?
I had a fantastic week. This was our first week back from Alaska. A lot of like settling in, coming home. Coming home is a real big theme for me. And
Hmm.
so I love traveling. I loved Alaska, and I love coming home and sinking back into my roots here. So
I'm
yeah, it's
I'm with you on
lovely.
that. You know, I love traveling, but I hate traveling.
What do you love and what do you hate about it?
I
We
love
maybe just changed our topic for today.
I when I ran my software company, I traveled in the last 6 7 years of it. I was the ambassador for computer animation in the world, and so I
Hmm.
traveled all over the world giving talks and running seminars and just all that good stuff. I traveled 80% of the time, so I was gone all the time, and it was pre 9/11, so it was really easy to travel. And
Right.
I love being in places, foreign places, and learning. I'm just so insanely curious that meeting new people and eating new foods and going to food markets and just all of that stuff. There's just no substitute for that. But
I would
now
agree.
the grind of traveling is just uh, nah, no thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, that was our trip to Alaska. That was the only bad part of
Yeah,
getting to the airport 2.5 hours early and barely making it onto the airplane.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and I just put a piece in. You talked about being in different countries. It truly felt to me like we were in a different country in Alaska.
Well, had you
And
visited there 150 years ago, it would have been a different country.
that is true.
So
Um,
that hasn't changed,
not
right?
even not even 150 years ago. Alaska was a state maybe 50 years ago or something like that. So
So
anyway,
here's a question for you, world traveler. What is it that makes travel so interesting? What is it about being in another country that is so
mm,
appealing?
every time I travel, I discover two things.
Oh,
One is there's a lot that's very similar to what I experience here. That literally on one level, people are people,
mm, mm,
regardless of
mm.
their size, shape, language, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that is unbelievably fascinating to me are the cultural differences and the diversity and what people, how people over literally millenniums have developed uh, to handle, cope, experience certain kinds of things like family, uh, like gatherings, like what a community is. Food is huge. Um, so, so what's so striking to me are the similarities, while at the same time the vast differences. Um,
I'm I'm with you on that, and now on reflection, find that when I traveled, I would go out of my way to have ordinary experiences.
yes. What would you? 20 things just went through my head. And a picture, as you and I often talk about seeing things and picturing things, is in Milan, Italy. Uh, and this was new to me, where you walk in and you walk into a restaurant here, and it's like everyone has their own separate little tables, at least for the most part. You walk into a restaurant in Milan, and actually throughout Italy, when I was there, is that there will be like a 10 or 12 top table, meaning 10 or 12 chairs around a table, and 5 people will be sitting around one end of it, and the host will sit you at the other end. And then, or people will be at each end, and if you're a couple, you'll be on either side in between 2 families. And
China is exactly the same.
is it the same?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And so again, on one level, that it was so different. It's like, oh, where do I put my elbow? And what is so
It's like,
interesting
what are the rules?
right.
What are the conventions? How do I want to fit in? I want to fit into this thing, right? But in my case, I was the tall gaijin, or the haole, you know, who there's no way I was going to disappear. One of the things that I remember it hitting me. I got to go to Sydney. It had been 10 years since we'd had customers in Sydney, but I'd not been. And they finally coerced me to do the 18-hour flight. And I was like, why did it take me 10 years to do this? It's my second favorite city in the world. And about 3 days into it, I said, what is it about this place that is so intriguing to me? And I said to myself, it's as foreign, literally on the other side of the world. So it's as foreign as you can get. However, because the language was the same, I could appreciate the whole experience on a whole nother level. But all the cultural references were different. All the foods were different. The money was different. The people were different. The accent was, everything was different, which made it foreign, the very definition of foreign.
Exactly.
But I could understand and I could read the signs, which is different than if I go, 1,500 miles to the north and I'm in Guangzhou, and it's foreign, but I can't read and I don't know what's going on.
You can't figure out, as you mentioned before, the rules.
Yeah.
And again, this is when you and I talk, every time we talk, it's like Black Friday. What I mean by that is, the 5,000 people outside of Walmart, and there's one door and everyone's trying to get in. That's what happens in my brain.
Those are all the ideas in your brain.
Yeah.
Well, let's pick the first one in line then, Doctor.
Well, there are two. One, which is a pretty funny story of the first time I was in Australia working, and the language, because the language is the same, but the language is not the same.
Not even near the same.
Not even close to the same.
Yes.
The other is the rules you mentioned when I was talking about the table and the seating, are the rules, and there are, when I talk about family therapy, or when I talk about families, or when I talk about groups, they always talk about 4 sets of rules.
Oh, and stop! Get out my pencil. What are the 4 set of rules?
Well, before I will tell you that, 1 minute, 1 second.
There's a cliffhanger.
But it's like, in the countries where we can read the signs, we can figure out the top 2 layers of rules usually.
Yeah. Yes.
In those places where we cannot read the signs, we cannot figure out those top 2.
And I just want to punch in real quickly because I think I overstated the importance of this topic by calling them rules. And I want to amend my word, Your Honor. I want to say conventions.
Works perfectly. And
Continue. We have four.
yeah, we could use norms. There's a lot of different words there. I'll use the word rules because that's where we started. The word, so I can say convention or norms. There's the spoken norms.
Hmm.
Everybody knows, unless you don't know the language or you can't read the language. So there's spoken. That's the top level. The next level are the unspoken rules or norms. The next level are the secret rules
Hmm.
or norms.
Hmm.
And then the deepest level are the somatic rules or norms.
And for those who are listening who don't know the word somatic, what is another word for that?
The rules or norms that you just feel that
Are those
by being
nonverbals?
totally nonverbal,
There you go.
but just literally by being in a group of people or in some cases even a herd of horses, for instance, you go, oh, this is what's happening. There are no words to it. It's like it's like, oh, you get it. The way I would put it is you get it in your bones.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to pause us right here because I think Yogi Berra said, when you see a fork in the road, take it. Uh, we've talked about we're talking about travel, and we're talking about travel in foreign lands, and we're talking about how we survive in that, and it's around understanding the spoken, the unspoken, the secret, and the somatic rules, so I know how to behave. i I don't want to get hurt, or I don't want to, whatever it is, we have a natural sense of wanting to conform on some level. So I get all that. I think that this is an opportunity for us to say, what else, if all that's true, and I believe it, what else in our lives is foreign and has the same four rules?
Ooh,
I think relationships are foreign in the beginning.
absolutely.
I think jobs are foreign in the beginning. I think just start with those two, and because I think that's really what we seem to always talk about is our relationship with other humans, and we
Right.
find some metaphor or some story that gets us there. And I think this one clearly got me there because I'm thinking about one last story. Before my first major international trip, 1986, we'd bought a company that had 600 customers in Japan. And so we went to Japan to meet those customers. There was a big computer animation software company that we bought. And one of our employees was married to a Japanese woman. And so we took her to dinner, and she just kind of took us to school on all the things. And I bought a book that was Kneel, Sit, or Bow: How to Do Business in 50 Countries. And it
Wow.
was things like, do they work 5 days a week or 6 days a week? Do they get to work early? Do they get to work late? Do people come to meetings on time? Do you, all the conventions for every country out there? And it was that book of rules.
Exactly.
And it got me thinking that, on a first date, there's some spoken rules and some unspoken rules. I don't know what the secret ones are. The somatic ones, you should clearly, hey, she's not that India, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the secret rules, here's the interesting piece. The secret, exactly. And the secret rules are the ones that you don't know about until you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I did in Australia. It was one of the more embarrassing times of my life. But the but you are right. Or the first date meeting. So you're dating someone and things are going well, and you go, oh well, maybe, wouldn't it be lovely to meet your family? And that that may strike fear. It may create excitement, but it's like, oh, what are the? Because every family unit that we meet is foreign,
Yeah.
and um, the, even interestingly enough, the rules of nature here in Colorado were different than the rules of nature in Alaska.
Oh, I need to hear it. Tell me.
Well, the wildness of Alaska, I mean, I'll go out to a lake here and I'll think a lake here is big because it's 7 or 8 miles across. Well, 7 or 8 miles across in Alaska is like nothing. I mean, you're talking 40 miles across. Talking the mountains come straight out of the water, and most people, if people don't know uh, what tree line is. Tree line is the altitude of which trees stop growing on any mountainside, and that depends on usually either amount of oxygen and or temperature. Well, in Colorado, the tree line is usually 10, 11,000 feet. We live at 7,500 feet. Tree line in Alaska is about 1,500 feet or 2,000 feet. The mountains there are 6,000 feet high, and they look ginormous. And we live 1,500 feet higher than that in Colorado, and it's like it's like, oh, and the mountains at 6,000 feet are snow-capped.
Hmm.
6,000-foot
Hmm.
mountain in Colorado is covered with trees and grass. So all of the rules are different, and even the light. The light is basically, when we were up there, it was light 24/7. It would get a little less light at midnight or one, but so rules of how we move in the world and how we move in relationships are different with each system.
I'm I'm fascinated with this idea of four rules. I love how it is. Um, it's really an understanding of language, which I'm a huge fan of language because I'm a student of communication and how to have more effective communication. Constantly trying to be more effective in that area. There isn't a day where I don't look at some communication and figure out what do I need to do to make sure this gets communicated, because otherwise
Exactly.
it's exhale only and I'm speechifying, and I
Yeah,
want to have a
exactly.
communication. And
Yeah,
how do I
exactly.
do that? So these four rules, is this something you were taught back in the day, or is this observational education?
It's a little bit of both. The four rules are what I put together
I love
when
that.
I'm teaching, uh, particularly working with systems and family therapy, because each family has all four of the rules.
Yeah, don't ever talk about Uncle Bob. Don't
Right,
bring Uncle Bob up. Like, that's going to set mom off.
right. And sometimes those rules are different. Sometimes even around a particular topic or situation, there will be four rules. Around one situation, there are four levels. I'll give you an example. I grew up in Northeast Ohio. Um, my family, quote, tried to be uh, non-discriminatory. The all of the messages, all the spoken rules in my family is everyone's equal. The unspoken rule was, we hope that you don't date a black girl.
Mm.
The secret rule was, if you date a black girl, we'll disown you.
Mm.
The somatic rule was, you will feel our hatred.
Wow.
And that actually happened to me.
Wow.
I actually fell in love with a young woman who was black, and we connected. And those were the 4 rules. It's like, yeah, we're all equal. Probably is not a great idea to date a black girl, because it'll just be tough. The secret rule is, if you date a black girl, you're out of the family. And I did not know. I suspected that, but I did not know that until it happened. And then the somatic rule is that it was just palpable. You could feel it. And sometimes those 4 rules are not, they're not that distinct, but when we're looking at something, it probably would behoove us to look at all of those in all of the relationships we have. And particularly, the closer the relationship, the more those rules affect us.
To go back to an earlier show where we talked about, and you've said this many, many times, is that intimacy is achieved over just a series of very small steps. The picture I painted for myself at the time was each one of those interactions is a little brick as we're building up this
Exactly.
relationship, and
You bet.
it feels like every interaction, you're kind of banking, you're learning what I can say, what I can't say. I know our therapist will say, "Hey, if he says something that makes you kind of good, just go, ow," and then he'll
Exactly.
learn. He'll he'll learn to don't do that.
Just like
And
if you stepped on her toe. Exactly.
exactly, it's like, "Oh no, ooh, I don't like that." Um, I'm I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated with the whole topic, and I'm so glad this is where we ended up on the secret rules. What's been your experience? Because this is your thing, experiencing this with families. Is it helpful to expose the secret rules and talk about them? And as they say, democracy dies in darkness. So
Yes.
shining a light on that, is that an encouraging thing?
Absolutely. And it's actually in most relationships, when a relationship goes awry, it's the secret rules that have been broken.
Give me an example.
Um, well, one of the biggest examples, and one of the places that people really struggle in intimate relationships, I'm talking heteronormative relationships, well, not even that, never mind, is around sex. And it's like, what are the secret rules around sex? What are, one is, what are the secret rules around how you ask?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Sure,
what
sure.
are the secret rules around who initiates? What are the secret rules around what's okay to do? What are the secret rules around touching in public? Um, what are those kinds of things. And it's like the spoken rule, at least most relationships, is, yeah, when we make a commitment that sex is a part of it in an intimate, romantic relationship. The unspoken rule is what, for instance, is, well, maybe at the first part of the relationship, but then it wanes off. The secret rules then come in mostly, and this is an interesting piece, and I I don't I'm always saying, oh, this may be the first time I put this together. Many of the secret rules come from and are initiated by trauma.
Oh, oh, that makes such total sense.
So if I've been traumatized sexually, I'm going to have all of these underlying secret rules.
How is it? Okay, hold on, doctor.
Okay, I'll rewind.
No, no, that makes the dots are being connected. How is that different than unspoken rules?
That's a great question. An unspoken rule, if you and I, if I come to your house and I walk in and maybe I'm there 20 minutes and look around, I go, oh, I'm the only one with shoes on. I go, hey, Mark, should I take my shoes off? And you'll go, oh, yeah, please. And, and the spoken part of that is I might walk in the front door and you say, would you please leave your shoes here?
Okay.
So an unspoken rule, when you ask, it'll be that'll be
It'll
responded
be
to.
revealed. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, it'll be, and you might say, yeah, most of the time we do that, but we're only going to be here a few minutes. And the secret rule is it you just get in trouble. You just get the dirty look.
Yeah.
So I might say, hey, Mark, should I take my shoes off? You go, you leave them on. Which I know that you wouldn't do that, but I know I'm making this up, but it's like the spoken rules can be really clear. It's just like, oh, I didn't know. Okay, sure. I'll take my shoes off now. And next time I'll know. There, um, and a lot of times in different cultures, the spoken rule, the unspoken rules, you learn by people actually trying to help you.
Right. Because they, like, I, funny, I do that with tourists. I live in a tourist town, and
Right.
I'll see people like, yeah, you probably, not that there's any dangerous part. There's just nothing interesting around a particular part of town. And so I will see, because the people stay in the hotels and then they walk through the industrial section to get into town, but they walked up like they're not even close, right?
Right, right,
And I'll
right,
just
right,
pull over and go, hey, you guys, you probably want to make a left at the next walk 4 blocks. You're going to be back on track. And because I
right.
don't
And
want you
you'll
to,
exactly.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to, I want to talk about nonverbals. As you know, we run storytellingschool.com and talk about how you can manage nonverbals in when you're giving a talk,
Mm-hmm.
and how much of communication is nonverbal. How, in your
Mm-hmm.
experience, do you think that again, you said this is a very animalistic, a very reptilian uh, trait that we have. We don't have to talk for this to be known. Do you
Right.
think that we're getting these signals and we're just ignoring them most of the time?
Are we getting the nonverbal signals and we pretend like they're not there?
Or we're just oblivious. Could we pretending they're not there? That's an intent, uh, or yeah, I'm not going to pay attention to the fact that you're scowling at me. Yes, I see you're scowling, and no, I'm not going to do it. No, it's the
Right.
obliviousness, or I mean, there's a whole world. There's a whole conversation on its own. How can you master your nonverbals and use your nonverbals in, let's say, for good and not for evil? I don't
Well,
want to give
actually, I
anybody the
think
wrong idea.
yeah, I think that most nonverbals are for good. Um, I trying to remember back on whether we talked about neuroception. Have we talked about that?
I don't think so. But if we have, it's worth another go.
Right. Neuroception is that part of our nervous system that it actually is in our body that we pick up the energy from that is coming toward us,
Mm.
and
Related to the word perception.
yeah,
Got it.
it it's actually the perception of our nervous system.
Oh, okay.
That's
There you
why it's
go.
called neuroception.
Got it.
Like if I say vision, we'll say visual perception or auditory perception. This is the perception of our nervous system that
Right.
bypasses all of the other, bypasses visual, smell, auditory. When we are not in touch with our bodies, when we are living in our heads, when we don't allow energy to move up and down through our system, we do become oblivious to all of those nonverbals because all of the nonverbals are we pick up a fair amount of those through visual perception, through auditory perception. Um, but the biggest place we pick them up is through neuroception. And if we have shut that system down, it's literally like walking through the world with our eyes closed.
And you've removed. I don't know what the on the four rules. I'm still obsessed with these four rules.
I
Um,
love the four rules.
um, some say that 76% of any conversation is the nonverbal, and that it's so that's why we teach people to show up emotionally, to show up with intention, to show up. I mean, let's say
Yes,
leaning
yes,
in,
yes,
having
yes.
big energy. All of that stuff is huge contributor to the success of the communication. Back to my earlier wanting to be an effective communicator is
You
about
are 100% correct.
all of those kinds of things. Um, what's interesting though is every time I hear the word somatic, I think of soma and I think of sleep.
Mm,
And that's just me. That's I think going back to my childhood, my mom was a nurse when soma was introduced, and I remember it would make people sleep. So
got it. Yeah, actually, I'm not 100%. What went through my mind is just a wondering of the ideology of somatic. What I think soma means body in Greek or something. I don't know that for sure, so I would have to go back and look at that. But,
I want to take us back and try to connect a few things. We talk about travel, and Robert Heinlein's famous book, Stranger in a Strange Land,
mm-hmm.
would come to mind. If you haven't read it, great book, listener. Go get that book. It's a classic. And stepping off the plane in Japan or walking into, you're just like where am I? Your first dose of that is in customs, right? In
Right.
whatever country you're in, and um, there was a time I used to spend a lot of time in Japan, and a dear travel buddy of mine, a working colleague, who loved food as much as I did. Um, I remember the first time we went to Skiji, which is the world's largest fish market,
Mm.
and uh, I had wanted to see Skiji really bad. It was on my bucket list, and here I am. And we finished entertaining clients around 2 in the morning, and I said, "I'll meet you in the lobby at 4. Get a quick nap. We're going to Skiji because I don't want to miss the tuna auction at 5." And we went and we watched the tuna auction. It was epic. It's everything you've seen in all the pictures. And Skiji is a circular. It's a ring of businesses, stalls under this huge business, huge, like a warehouse right on the
Mm-hmm.
docks, and the boats unload the fish, and then the fish goes from the inner rings all the way out to the outer ring. And by the time you're at the outer rings, the fish is in little sushi boxes. But like a
Oh my
whole tuna
gosh.
gets sold to the first ring of guys and they quarter it, and the second ring of guys buy the quarters, and then that second, I mean, it just goes like that. It's fascinating. And there's literally every thing you can eat in the ocean, from octopus that weren't any bigger than my little finger, to, I mean, literally everything. And
Wow. Huh. That's mind blowing.
after 4 hours, around 8 in the morning, and all the restaurants are on the outside, which is fantastic
Hmm.
for all the workers, right? There's no tourists there. This is not a tourist spot. And I said, I mean, that was an amazing experience to my friend. I said, what did we just learn? Why? He's like, Sylvester, why is it always got to be something we learn? I said, well, because now would be a good time to talk about that because we just learned it. And he goes, okay. And I said, okay, two things come to mind. One, we had no idea what we were looking at other than just we didn't have a Google with us.
Right?
And there are signs everywhere. We couldn't read them. There were signs everywhere. So we couldn't say, hey, where's the squid section? I want to go look at squid or where, etc. Couldn't go in. So we didn't have an understanding of the language. So we were disadvantaged because we couldn't intentionally go see things. The other thing we didn't have was a map. We didn't have language. We didn't have a map. And he goes, okay. I said, so now to cement our learning, how can we apply what we just learned? Again, he gives me the look, the somatic. Okay, Sylvester, what's up?
The secret rule of, come on, Mark.
Yeah, please. Come on, coach, give me the answer. So we ran a software company, computer animation company, and doing computer animation is extremely complicated. It's very complex. Um,
I would think so.
and when you buy our manuals, you get 23 linear inches of manual, right? That I measured
Like that
once.
would be that thick?
This
23
it's yeah
inches?
no
Oh my God.
individual books on the shelf, 23 inches
Whew.
of them, and yet there wasn't a glossary anywhere. We expected people to understand things like Bezier curve and NURB and B shade and diffuse and all these things that there's no way you could know. And we didn't, there was no glossary. So I didn't know the language. And there was no map. Like you go here, then you're going to go here, then you're going to go here, and you
Hmm.
might want to travel over to here. And I said, we are doing the people who use their software a huge disservice. The same thing that happened here. They're stumbling through the software. They're figuring it all out. And they would achieve greater velocity if we could remove this friction, this educational
Right.
friction.
Right.
And so we went back and we had our technical team put glossaries in the front of the manuals. So these are the words you're going to, rather than, well, not have them at all or have them in the back. And then put maps that could be unfolded and put up on the wall. So I could say, I wanted our guys actually to have if you could hit the right mouse anywhere, it would just say, you are here. So I like, okay, shit, I just got lost. What happened? Where am I?
Hmm.
Never did that one. But I thought, and that was 25 years ago. And
Hmm.
that has guided my thinking. I think it's what we're talking about right now is when we go into a relationship, I don't
Mm.
know the language of this other person. I don't know to today's conversation. I don't know the rules. I don't
What's
know.
the map and what's a glossary of this
Yeah, what's
relationship?
what's what's the map of how am I going to get through this? And guess what? I stumble through it, and I make, oh no, don't go there. Or hey, that was a really nice, but that was really fun. You could just tell her whole body relaxed when we did that, and that was good. And we learn experientially. And I don't know that you can get a map or you can get a glossary, but gosh, wouldn't it be great if we did?
Yes, and I think we might be able to get a general map and a general glossary. I'm not so sure that that's outside of the realm of possibility.
We see that as we're growing up because that map and that glossary gets built up through experience. We see how our parents relate or don't
Hmm.
relate. We see how people relate or don't relate in school, which is the workplace. of youth.
Right.
We see how all of those things work, and we're gradually building that up experientially. But the secret stuff's not there. The somatic stuff. I mean, did anybody ever talk to you about how to read nonverbal communication?
No, not
Yeah.
actually. This is a crazy part. Not until I started working with horses.
Huh?
And uh, then I started learning. And that's where I really started learning about, I mean, because of my studies and et cetera, I've known about neuroception, but it's been with horses that it was like, oh, listen to that piece.
Mm.
Um, the truth is had I listened to it a couple times where I needed to and I didn't, I wouldn't have busted up my pelvis. And um,
Or busted up a relationship.
busted up a relationship or entered a relationship
Mm.
that
That was that was screaming, "No, don't go,
yeah,
Joe, don't."
yeah, don't go here, don't go here, don't go here. And and uh and for whatever reason that, I mean, I can think back where my gut's going, don't go here, don't go here. And my dick is going, yeah, go there because you're horny. So that level, a big part of what you're talking about too, and that really struck me when you were talking about the map, and I just might sound a little like a non sequitur, but it's like, where's the congruence in this?
Hmm.
Like when I'm imagining that, and it sounds like it was concentric circles,
Yeah,
the fish market.
half circles.
Yeah. Is that over time, whomever put that together, and my guess is it took hundreds of years to develop that, is that there was a level of congruency in that process that people felt, knew, and became second nature to them. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely,
Based on
and
what you
it
saw.
goes to our conversation around competence several weeks back, and we
Right.
came unconscious competence of how to live in that world. By the way, what I didn't tell you is the distance between stalls was, I'm 48 inches was given it a lot, because the little trucks that move, that are just going
Mm-hmm.
breakneck speed, and everything's wet, are just enough room if you stand up on the side to let them go by you. But everybody knows how that world, and you become unconsciously competent at how to exist in that world. As you said, they were probably selling fish there for hundreds of years.
Right. And so we learned that. And so those parts of us were, and people could feel it. I mean, I would bet dollars to donuts that the men and women who were working in that fish market, they didn't have to watch for the truck coming. They just knew it. They didn't have to know that this fillet was coming up over this way. They just knew it. And and when we allow ourselves to drop into that depth of congruency, we will just know it.
Which makes me immediately think of a constant theme on this show, which is trust.
Right. Right.
Because you can't release all the conscious stuff to allow the unconscious to take over, unless you trust that your unconscious is going to make the right decisions.
Exactly. And in this case, and we talked about trust on different levels. In this case, I truly, this is, and it's been a theme this week in my work, is trusting ourselves. Because, I mean, I have gotten into relationships where my gut was going, no, no. But on the outside, everything looked good. And it was like, and, and those are the relationships I regret. I mean, both around, romantic relationships, but also friendships.
I have a question
Go for it,
that
sir.
speaks to intuition. And I have learned that part of being an elder is trusting your gut, but it's also trusting my partner's intuition. And
You bet.
she'll have an intuition, and I used to rationalize around that, and now I just go, yeah, good, thank you, awesome,
Exactly.
awesome. And the same with myself. And even if I'm wrong, I'm probably only going to be wrong a very small portion of the
Mm-hmm.
time. Wrong in the sense of trusting my gut. The counter to that is one person I remember a talk said, that old saw about trusting your gut. What that means is you don't have enough information yet to make a decision here. You're
Mm.
making a decision here. And as soon as you get enough information, you can make the decision here. And I would suggest that he was probably wrong, and that
I would agree with that.
somatically, my body's saying, danger, Will Robinson, danger, danger.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And my brain just hasn't figured that out yet. We haven't gone from somatic to secret to unspoken to spoken.
Right, right, right. Well, and if we can truly allow ourselves to be congruent, our brains and our gut will work together.
Which is the very definition of congruency.
It's the very definition of congruency.
Mr. Freeman.
When that's not happening, we need to listen to our gut.
That's our t-shirt for the show, ladies and gentlemen. You can find that t-shirt. Listen to your gut. Dewey Freeman and Mark Sylvester here, the Elder Council. Dewey, thank you so much. This is just
thank you.
It's just another one of those where we think we're going one way and then bam, hard right, and we end up in the right place.
We trust our guts.